Alright, I'm just gonna wait for people to start filtering in. Oh, hey! Hi, Board Cody. Or Crystal. You're Crystal, right? First. I'm first. Yes. Yes, you are. Let me just put my phone where I can see chat. By the way, if my voice sounds like shite, not my fault. I woke up with my throat sore, so that's great. Do you guys like the effort I put in? I've got a nice image and I've got some ambience. How's the ambience, by the way? Can you guys hear it all right? I can turn it up, like, all the way up. Like, listen to this. This is probably deafening. You guys can probably barely hear me, right? I don't even know. I'm just gonna turn it back down. Maybe right there is alright. Anyways, today we're gonna be reading some stories from our good friend Lovecraft. Nice image, thank you. It's from Call of Cthulhu. It's like one of the official art things. So in this book we have a few stories. We have The Nameless City, Herbert West Reanimator. That one has multiple parts, so we might do that on another stream where we'll read the whole thing. That one's actually my favorite. The Hound, that one's also my favorite. The Lurking Fear, that one is also multiple parts. I haven't even finished that one. Probably because it's kind of boring to me. Cave with a Staircase, Fog, and dark scenery, spooky. Rats in the Walls. I know that one definitely has, some occurrence of the N-word. So, gotta look out for that. The Festival, haven't seen that one. The Shunned House, haven't seen that one. The Horror at Red Hook, that one seems familiar. He, and the Call of Cthulhu. Oh, and the History of Necronomicon, but I think that's just like an extra thing. Let's see. Where is it? I'm gonna be honest with you, when I read the Call of Cthulhu, like the actual story, it's not that exciting, honestly. Wow, that's fantastic. Great. Okay, moving on. Of what word? The N-word. There's gonna be no N-word here, since Lovecraft really was fond of the N-word. I have my dog here, by the way. He looks dead. Are you dead? No answer. I think my dog died, guys. That's okay. Oh, hey, it's Spooky Cookie. Someone call Spooky. Hey, how's it going? Alright, let's just get started. We're gonna start with The Nameless City. How's the audio, by the way? Is it good? Ignore that. That's just the sound of wonderful spooky ambiance. Oh my god, the thunder is kicking up. Jesus. Anyways, what the hell? Oh, mentions Neil Gaiman in this book. Apparently Lovecraft influenced that guy's writing. That's cool. Anyways, I'm getting distracted. When I drew nigh the Nameless City, I knew it was accursed. I was traveling in a parched and terrible valley under the moon, and afar I saw it protruding uncannily above the sands, as parts of a corpse may protrude from an ill-made grave. Fear spoke from the age-worn stones of this hoary survivor of the deluge. This great-grandmother of the eldest pyramid and a viewless Ura repelled me, and bade me retreat from antique and sinister secrets that no man should see, that no man else had ever dared to see. Remote in the desert of Araby lies the Nameless City, crumbling in and inarticulate, its low walls nearly hidden by the sands of uncounted ages. It must have been thus before the first stones of Memphis were laid, and while the bricks of Babylon were yet unbaked. There is no legend so old as to give it a name. What the hell? The chat borked. There we go. Where were we? Sorry if I stuttered a lot. I know that there is definitely going to be some terrible stuttering that's going to occur. Oh, my dog's alive. That's good. Hey! You want a treat? Don't leave me, please. Here, take 3. Tosses it like chicken feed. Alright, back to this wonderful story. There is no legend so old as to give it a name, or to recall that it was ever alive, but it is told of in whispers around campfires and muttered about by grandmas and tents of sheiks, so that all the tribes shun it without wholly knowing why. It was of this place that Abdul al-Hazred, the mad poet, dreamed on the night before he sang his inexplainable couplet. That is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die. I should have known that the Arabs had good reason for shunning the nameless city, the city told of in strange tales but seen by no living man, yet I defied them and went to the untrodden waste with my camel. Alone have seen it, and that is why no other face bears such hideous lines of fear as mine, why no other man shivers so horribly when the night wind rattles the windows. When I came upon it in the ghastly stillness of unending sleep, it looked at me, chilly from the rays of the cold moon amidst the desert heat. As I turned its look, I forgot my triumph at finding it, and stopped still with my camel to wait for the dawn. For hours I waited till the east grew gray and the stars faded, and the gray turned to a roseal light edged with gold. I heard a moaning and saw a storm of sand stirring among the antique stones. Through the sky was clear and the vast reaches of the desert still. Then suddenly above the desert's far rim came the blazing edge of the sun, seen through the tiny sandstorm which was passing away, and in my fevered state I fancied that from some remote depth there came a crash of musical metal to hail the fiery disk as Memnon hails it at the banks of the Nile. My ears rang and my imagination seethed as I led my camel slowly across the sand to that unvocal stone place, that place too old for Egypt and Meroe to remember, that place which I alone of living men had seen. Believe in yourself when you read. I believe. In and out amongst the shapeless foundations of houses and palaces I wandered, finding never a carving or inscription to tell of those men, if men they were, who built the city and dwelt therein so long ago. The antiquity of the spot was unwholesome, and I longed to encounter some sign or device to prove that the city was indeed fashioned by mankind. There were certain proper proportions and dimensions. Why is that in italics? Anyways, proportions and dimensions in the ruins which I did not like. I had with me many tools and dug much within the walls of the obliterated edifices, but progress was slow and nothing significant was revealed. When night and the moon returned, I felt a chill wind which brought new fear, so that I did not dare remain in the city, and as I went outside the antique walls to sleep, a small sighing sandstorm gathered behind me, blowing over the gray stones to the moon, though the moon was bright and most of the desert still. I awakened just at dawn from a pageant of horrible dreams, my ears ringing as from some metallic peal. I saw the sun peering redly through the last gusts of the little sandstorm that hovered over the nameless city, and marked the quietness of the rest of the landscape. Once more I ventured within the brooding ruins that swelled beneath the sand like an ogre? I don't think that says ogre. Ogre? I don't know. Under the coverlet. And again dug vainly for relics of the forgotten race. At noon I rested, and in the afternoon I spent much time tracing the walls, and the bygone streets, and the outlines of the nearly vanished buildings. I saw that the city had been mighty indeed, and wondered at the sources of its greatness. To myself I pictured all the splendors of an age so distant that Chaldea could not recall it, and thought of Sarnath the Doom that stood in the land of Manar when mankind was young, and of Ib that was carven of grey stone before mankind existed. All at once I came upon a place where the bedrock rose stark through the sand and formed a low cliff, and here I saw with joy what seemed to promise further traces of the antediluvian people. What? Hewn rudely over the face of the cliff were the unmistakable facades of several small, squat rock houses, or temples, whose interiors might preserve many secrets of ages too remote for calculation. Those sandstorms had long since effaced any carvings which may have been outside. Very low and sand-choked were all the dark apertures near me. but I cleared one with my spade and crawled through it, carrying a torch to reveal whatever mysteries it might hold. When I was inside, I saw that the cavern was indeed a temple, and beheld plain signs of a race that lived and worshipped before the desert was a desert. Primitive altars, pillars, and niches, all curiously low, were not absent, and though I saw no sculptures, no frescoes, there were many singular stones clearly shaped into symbols by artificial means. The lowness of the chiseled chamber was very strange, for I could hardly more than kneel upright, but the area was so great that my torch shewed only part a time. I shuddered oddly in some of the far corners, for certain altars and stones suggested forgotten rites of terrible, revolting, and inexplicable nature, and made me wonder what manner of men could have made and frequented such a temple. When I had seen all that the place contained, I crawled out again, avid to find what the other temples might yield. Night had now approached, yet the tangible things I had seen made curiosity stronger than fear, so that I did not flee from the long moon-cast shadows that had daunted me when I first saw the nameless city. In the twilight, I cleared another aperture, and with a new torch crawled into it, finding more vague stones and symbols, though nothing was more definite than the other temple had contained. The room was just as low, but much less broad, ending in a very narrow passage crowded with obscure and cryptical shrines. About these shrines I was prying when the noise of wind and of my camel outside broke through the stillness and drew me forth to see what could have frightened the beast. The moon was gleaming vividly over the primeval ruins, lighting a dense cloud of sand that seemed blown by a strong but decreasing wind from some point along the cliff ahead of me. I knew it was this chilly, sandy wind which had disturbed the camel, and it was about to lead him to a place of better shelter when I chanced to glance up and saw that there was no wind atop the cliff. This astonished me and made me fearful again, but I immediately recalled the sudden local winds I had seen and heard before at sunrise and sunset, and judged it was a normal thing. I decided that it came from some rock fissure leading to a cave, and watched the trouble stand to trace it to its source. Soon perceiving that it came from the black orifice of a temple a long distance south of me, almost out of sight. Against the choking sand cloud I plodded toward this temple, which as I neared it loomed larger against the rest. Wait, what does that word even mean? Hold on, I'm gonna look that up. It looks like it's supposed to be shrew or something, but it's like, hold on, meaning. Does anyone else, when they're looking up definitions of words, they always get meaning in Hindi? Old-fashioned spelling of show. Wow. How old? 1800s. Good God. That is old. Anyways. So, basically, and showed a doorway far less clogged with caked sand. I would have entered had not the terrific force of the icy wind almost quenched my torch. It poured madly out of the dark doors, sighing uncannily as it ruffled the sand and spread about the weird ruins. Soon it grew fainter, and the sand grew more and more still, till finally all was at rest again. But a presence seemed stalking among the spectral stones of the city, and when I glanced at the moon, it seemed to quiver as though mirrored in unquiet waters. I was more afraid than I could explain, but not enough to dull my thirst for wonder. So as soon as the wind was quiet again, I crossed into the dark chamber from which it had came. This temple, as I had fancied from the outside, was larger than either of those I had visited before, and was presumably a natural cavern, since it bore winds from some region beyond. Here I could stand quite upright, but saw that the stones and the altars were as low as those in the other temples. On the walls and roof I beheld for the first time some traces of the pictorial art of the ancient race. Curious curling streaks of paint that had almost faded or crumbled away, and on two of the altars I saw, with rising excitement, a maze of well-fashioned curvilinear carvings. As I held my torch aloft, it seemed to me that the shape of the roof was too regular to be natural, and I wondered what the prehistoric cutters of stone had first worked upon. Their engineering skills must have been vast. when a brighter flare of the fantastic flame showed me that for which I had been seeking, the opening up to those remoter abysses whence the sudden wind was blown, and I grew faint when I saw that it was a small and plainly artificial door chiseled in the solid rock. I thrust my torch within, beholding a black tunnel with the roof arching low over a rough flight of very small, numerous, and steeply descending steps. I shall always see those steps in my dreams, for I came to learn what they meant. At the time, I hardly knew whether to call them steps or mere footholds in a precipitous descent. My mind was whirling with mad thoughts, and the words and warnings of arid prophets seemed to float across the desert from the lands that men know to the nameless city, that men dare not know. Yet I hesitated only a moment before advancing through the portal and commencing to climb cautiously down the steep passage, feet first as though on a ladder. It is only in the terrible phantasms of drugs or delirium that any other man can have had such a descent as mine. The narrow passage led infinitely down like some hideous haunted well, and the torch I held above my head could not light the unknown depths toward which I was crawling. I lost track of the hours and forgot to consult my watch, though I was frightened when I thought of the distance I must be traversing. There were changes of directions of the steepness. No, wait, there were changes of Jesus Christ. Okay. There were changes of direction and of steepness. And once I came to a long, low... Hold on, let me make sure that storm isn't drowning at my voice. Nope, okay. Pronounce the word, oh my god. Shoot, knew that. What? Oh my... Okay, hold on. Phanamatomachian? That's my best pronunciation. How's the ambience, by the way? Do you want me to turn it up? Just a little bit up. There we go. Alright. Oh no, I knocked over my cup, which holds my wires and my drawing pen. Hold on, I'm just gonna crack open a cold one. You know, I really wish it was, darker outside right now, because I just have this most beautiful ray of sunlight coming in. Well, not really a ray of sunlight, but the sun is just shining ever so beautifully down as I'm reading this horrific story. Where was I? There were changes of direction and of steepness, and once I came to a long, low-level passage where I had to wriggle feet first along the rocky floor. Can I just say, my biggest fear is claustrophobia. Not just any claustrophobia, but cave claustrophobia. Like squeezing through a cave passage and then like a cave-in happening or something. Like, it sends chills down my spine. Soda, drink water. I did drink water. I drank a bunch of water this morning. Meanwhile, you've been drinking soda throughout the day. Holding my torch at arm's length beyond my head, the place was not high enough for kneeling. After that, were more of the steep steps, and I was still scrambling down interminably when my failing torch died out. Oh no. Ugh. I do not think I noticed it at the time. How? When I did notice, I was still holding it high above me, as if it were ablaze. I was quite unbalanced, with that instinct for the strange and the unknown, which has made me a wanderer upon the earth and a haunter of far ancient and forbidden places. In the darkness, there flashed before my mind fragments of my cherished treasury of demonic lore, sentences from the Al-Hazred, the Mad Arab, paragraphs from the, oh my god, apocryphal nightmares of Damascus, and infamous lines from the delirious Image du Monde of Gauthier de Metz. I repeated queer extracts and muttered of Afrasiab and the demons that floated with him down the Oxus, later chanting over and over a phrase from one of the Lord Dunsany's tales, the irreverent blackness of the abyss. Once, when the descent grew amazingly steep, I recited something in a sing-song from Thomas More until I feared to recite more. A reservoir of darkness black, as witches' cauldrons are when filled, with moon drugs in the eclipse distilled. Leaning to look if foot might pass, down through that chasm I saw beneath, as far as vision could explore. The jetty sides as smooth as glass, looking as if it just varnished o'er. With that dark pitch the sea of death throws upon its slimy shore. Time had quite ceased to exist when my feet again felt a level floor. I found myself in a place slightly higher than the rooms in the two smaller temples now. So incalculably far above my head, I could not quite stand, but could kneel upright, and in the dark I shuffled and crept hither and thither at random. I soon knew that I was in a narrow passage whose walls were lined with cases of wood having glass fronts. As in that Paleozoic and abysmal place I felt as such things as polished wood and glass, I shuddered at the impossible implications. The cases were apparently ranged along each side of the passage at regular intervals, and were oblong and horizontal, hideously like coffins in shape and size. When I tried to move 2 or 3 for further examination, I found that they were firmly fastened. I saw that the passage was a long one, so floundered ahead rapidly in a creeping run that would have seemed horrible had any eye watched me in the darkness, crossing from side to side occasionally to feel my surroundings and be sure the walls and rows of cases still stretched on. Man is so used to thinking visually that I almost forgot the darkness and pictured the endless corridor of wood and glass in its low-studded monotony, as though I saw it. And then, in a moment of indescribable emotion, I did see it. Just when my fancy merged into real sight, I cannot tell, but there came a gradual glow ahead, and all at once I knew that I saw the dim outlines of the corridor and the cases revealed by some unknown subterranean phosphorescence. For a little while, all was exactly as I had imagined it, since the glow was very faint, but as I mechanically kept on stumbling ahead into the stronger light, I realized that my fancy had been but feeble. This hall was no relic of crudity, like the temples in the city above, but a monument of the most magnificent and exotic art. Rich and vivid and daringly fantastic designs and pictures formed a continuous scheme of mural paintings, whose lines and colors beyond description. The cases were of a strange golden wood, with fronts of exquisite glass, and contained the mummified forms of creatures outreaching in grotesque and almost chaotic dreams of man. To convey any idea of these monstrosities is impossible. They were of the reptile kind, with body lines suggesting something like the crocodile. Sometimes the seal, but more often nothing of which either naturalist or the paleontologist ever heard. In size they approximate a small man, and their forelegs bore delicate and evidently flexible feet, curiously like human hands and fingers. But strangest of all were their heads, which presented a contour violating all known biological principles. To nothing can such things be well compared. In one flash, I thought of comparisons as varied to a cat, the bulldog, the mystic satyr, and the human being. Not Jove himself. Jove himself had so colossal and protuberant a forehead, yet the horns and the noseless and the alligator-like jaw placed the things outside all established categories. I debated for some time on the reality of the mummies, half suspecting they were artificial idols, but soon decided they were indeed some Paleogene species, which had lived when the nameless city was alive. To crown their grotesqueness, most of them were grotesquely enrobed in the costliest of fabrics, and lavishly laden with ornaments of gold, jewels, and unknown shining metals. Hold on, let me just adjust here. I wonder if Lovecraft liked dinosaurs. You know what? He probably did. Also, can I just point out, what I really don't like whenever I read H.P. Lovecraft stories is, it's like, oh, it's impossible to describe it, and either it doesn't even describe, like, the horror, or it describes it. It's like, okay, then why'd you say you can't describe it, buddy? Why didn't you do your best? Just fucking describe it to me. You expect me to be scared when you say, oh, it had a claw, and that's it. Wow, thanks, Lovecraft. I'm shitting my pants in fear. I'm like a fucking rocket right now. I am quivering. I am sobbing. I think I'm gonna have PTSD now. This is the most terrifying thing I've ever read in my entire life. Thank you, Lovecraft. Anyways, moving on. That's just my nitpick of his writing style. Alright, gonna have the book real close to the mic. I don't know if you guys can hear this. Anyways. Back to being serious. Ed, I am the Claw. What? Who the fuck is Ed? The importance of these crawling creatures must have been vast, for they held first place among the wild designs on the frescoed walls and ceilings. Okay. Okay, yourself. With matchless skill had the artist drawn them in a world of their own, wherein they had cities and gardens fashioned to suit their dimensions, and I could not but think that their pictured history was allegorical, perhaps showing the progress of the race that worshipped them. These creatures, I said to myself, were to the men of the nameless city, that the she-wolf was to Rome, or some totem beast is to a tribe of Indian. Oh my god. Okay. Holding this view, I thought I could trace a roughly wonderful epic of the nameless city, the tale of the sea-coast metropolis that ruled the world before Africa rose out of the waves, and its struggles as the sea shrank away and the desert crept into the fertile valley that held it. I saw its wars and triumphs, its troubles and defeats, and afterwards its terrible fight against the desert when thousands of its people, here represented in allegory by the grotesque reptiles, were driven to chisel their way down through the rocks in some marvelous manner to another world whereof their prophets had told them. It was all vividly weird and realistic, and its connection with the awesome descent I had made was unmistakable. I even recognized the passages. As I crept along the corridor toward the brighter light, I saw later stages of the painted epic, the leave-taking of the race that had dwelt in the nameless city, and the valley around it for 10 million years, the race whose souls shrank from quitting scenes their bodies had known so long, where they had settled as nomads in the earth's young hewing of the virgin rock, whose primal shrines at which they never ceased to worship. Now that the light was better, I studied the pictures more closely, and remembering that those strange reptiles must represent the unknown men, pondered upon the customs of the nameless city. Many things were peculiar and inexplicable. The civilization, which included a written alphabet, had seemingly risen to a higher order than those immeasurably later civilizations of Egypt or Chaldea. Yet there were curious omissions. I could, for example, find no pictures to represent deaths or funeral customs, save such as were related to wars, violence, and plagues, and I wondered at the reticence shown concerning natural death. It was as though an ideal earthly immortality had been fostered as a cheering illusion. Still near the end of the passage were painted scenes of utmost picturesqueness and extravagance. Contrasted views of the nameless city in its desertion and growing ruin, and of the strange new realm or paradise to which the race had hewed its way through stone. In these views, the city and the desert valley were shown always by moonlight, a golden nimbus hovering over the fallen walls and half revealing the splendid perfection of former times, shown spectrally and elusively by the artist. The paradisial scenes were almost too extravagant to be believed, portraying a hidden world of external day filled with glorious cities and ethereal hills and valleys. At the very last, I thought I saw signs of artistic anticlimax. The paintings were less skillful and much more bizarre than even the wildest of the earlier scenes, and seemed to record a slow decadence of the ancient stock, coupled with a growing ferocity toward the outside world from which it was driven by the desert. The forms of the people, always represented by the sacred reptiles, appeared to be gradually wasting away, though their spirit, as shown hovering about the ruins by moonlight, gained in proportion. Emaciated priests displaying as reptiles on ornate robes cursed the upper air and all who breathed it. And one terrible final scene showed a primitive-looking man, perhaps a pioneer of ancient Irem, the city pillars, torn to pieces by members of the elder race. I remembered how the Arabs feared the nameless city, and was glad that beyond this place the grey walls and ceiling were bare. As I viewed the pageant of mural history, I had approached very closely to the end of the low-ceilinged hall, and was aware of a great gate through which all the illuminating phosphorescence, through which came all of the illuminating phosphorescence. Creeping up to it, I cried aloud in transcendent amazement at what lay beyond. For instead of other and brighter chambers, there was only an illimitable void of uniform radiance, such as one might fancy when gazing down from the peak of Mount Everest upon a sea of sunlit mist. Behind me was a passage so cramped that I could not stand upright in. Before me was an infinity of subterranean effulgence. Reaching down from the steps into the abyss was the head of a steep flight of steps. Small and numerous steps like those of the black passages I had traversed, but after a few feet the glowing vapors concealed everything. Swung back open against the left-hand wall of the passage was a massive door of brass, incredibly thick and decorated with fantastic bas-reliefs, which could, if closed, shut the whole inner world of light away from the vaults and passages of rock. Okay, chat borked. Let me just fix that. Okay. I looked at the steps and for the nonce dared not try them. I touched the open brass door and could not move it. Then I sank prone to the stone floor, my mind aflame with prodigious reflections which not even a death-like exhaustion could banish. As I lay still with closed eyes, free to ponder many things I had lightly noted in the frescoes, came back to me with a new and terrible significance. Scenes representing the nameless city in its heyday, the vegetation of the valley around it, and the distant lands with which its merchants traded. Allegory of the crawling creatures puzzled me by its universal prominence, and I wondered that it should be so closely followed in a pictured history of such importance. In the frescoes, the nameless city had been shown in proportions fitted to the reptiles. I wondered what its real proportions and magnificence had been, and reflected a moment on certain oddities I had noticed in the ruins. I thought curiously of the lowness of the primal temples and of the underground corridor, which were doubtless hewn thus out of deference to the reptile deities there honored. Though it perforce reduced the worshippers to crawling, perhaps the very rites had involved a crawling in imitation of the creatures. No religious theory, however, could easily explain why the level passage in the awesome descent should be as low as the temples, or lower since one could not even kneel in it. As I thought of the crawling creatures, whose hideous mummified forms were so close to me, I felt a new throb of fear. Mental associations are curious, but I shrank from the idea that except for the poor primitive man torn to pieces in the last painting, mine was the only human form amidst the many relics and the symbols of primordial life. But as always, in my strange and roving existence, wonder soon drove out fear, for the luminous abyss and what it might contain presented a problem worthy of the greatest explorer. That a weird world of mystery lay far down the flight of peculiarly small steps I could not doubt, and I hope to find these... Wait, what? I hope to find those human memorials which the painted corridor had failed to give. The frescoes had pictured unbelievable cities, hills, and valleys in this lower realm, and my fancy dwelt on the rich and colossal ruins that awaited me. My fears, indeed, concerned the past rather than the future, not even the physical horror of my position in that cramped corridor of dead reptiles and antediluvian frescoes, miles below the world I knew and faced by another world of eerie light and mist, could match the lethal dread I felt at the abysmal antiquity of the scene and its soul. An ancientness so vast the measurement is feeble seemed to leer down from the primal stones and rock-hewn temples in the nameless city, while the very latest of this astounding maps in the frescoes showed oceans and continents that the man has forgotten, with only here and there some vaguely familiar outline of what could have happened in the geological eons since the painting ceased and the death-hating race resentfully succumbed to decay. No man might say. Life had once teemed in these caverns and in the luminous realm beyond. Now I was alone with vivid relics, and I trembled to think of the countless ages through which these relics had kept silent and deserted vigil. Hi, Falky. Sorry I'm late. No, it's okay. Suddenly there came another burst of that acute fear, which had intermittently seized me ever since I first saw the terrible valley and the nameless city under a cold moon. And despite my exhaustion, I found myself starting frantically to a sitting posture and gazing back along the black corridor towards the tunnels that rose to the outer world. My sensations were much like those which had made me shun the nameless city at night, and were as inexplicable as they were poignant. In another moment, however, I received a still greater shock in the form of a definite sound, at the first which had broken the utter silence of these tomb-like depths. It was a deep, low moaning, as of a distant throng of condemned spirits, came from the direction in which I was staring. Its volume rapidly grew, till soon it reverberated frightfully through the low passage, and at the same time I became conscious of an increasing draught of cold air, likewise flowing from the tunnels of the city above. The touch of its air seemed to restore my balance, for I instantly recalled the sudden gusts which had risen from the mouth of the abyss, each sunset and sunrise, one of which had indeed served to reveal the hidden tunnels towards me. I looked at my watch and saw that sunrise was near, so braced myself to resist the gale which was sweeping down its cavern home as it had swept forth that evening. My fear again waned low, since a natural phenomenon tends to dispel broodings over the unknown. More and more madly poured and shrieking moaning night went into the gulf of the inner earth. I dropped prone again and clutched vainly at the floor for fear of being swept bodily through the open gate into the phosphorescent abyss. Such fury I had not expected, and as I grew aware of an actual slipping of my form towards the abyss, I was beset by 1,000 new terrors of apprehension and imagination. The malignancy of the blast awakened incredible fancies. Once more I compared myself shudderingly to the only other human image in that frightful corridor, the man who was torn to pieces by the nameless race. For in the fiendish clawing of the swirling currents there seemed to abide a vindictive rage, all the stronger because it was largely impotent. I think I screamed frantically near the last. I was almost mad, but if I did so, my cries were lost in the hell-born babble of the howling wind wraiths. I tried to crawl against the murderous invisible torrent, but I could not even hold my own as I was pushed slowly and inexorably towards the unknown world. Finally, reason must have wholly snapped, for I fell to babbling over and over the unexplainable couplet of the mad Arab Al-Hazred, who dreamed of the nameless city. That is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die. Only the grim brooding desert gods know what really took place, the indescribable struggles and scrambles in the dark I endured, or what Abaddon guided me back to life, where I must always remember and shiver in the night wind till oblivion, or worse, claims me. Monstrous, unnatural, colossal was the thing, too far beyond all the ideas of man to be believed, except in the silent, damnable small hours when one cannot sleep. I said that the fury, the rushing blast was infernal. Oh my god, what is that word? Cacodemonical. And that its voices were hideous with the pent-up viciousness of desolate entities. Presently, these voices were still chaotic before me, seemed to my beating brain to take articulate form behind me, and down there in the grave of unnumbered, eon-dead antiquities, leagues below the dawn-lit world of men, I heard the ghastly cursing and snarling of strange-tongued fiends. Turning, I saw outlined against the luminous aether of the abyss what could not be seen against the dusk of the corridor. Nightmare horde of rushing devils, hate-distorted, grotesquely panoplied, half-transculent devils of a race no man might mistake, the crawling reptiles of the nameless city. And as the wind died away, I was plunged into the ghoul-peopled blackness of the earth's bowels, for behind the last of the creatures the great brazen door clanged shut with a deafening peal of metallic music, whose reverberations swelled out to the distant world to hail the rising sun as Menon hails it from the banks of the Nile. Okay, that's the nameless city. Next one is Herbert West, but that one has multiple parts. How long is that one? That's like quite a few pages. What do you guys think? You guys want to read this one? It's my favorite. I really like this one. I'm gonna take a quick sip. Sun's actually starting to go down, so it's gonna get more spooky. And my dog has died again. That's good. We also have the hound. I like that one. Hey, my dog's a hound! So I guess that kind of fits. Alright, yeah, I guess we'll start with, Herbert West. Of Herbert West, who was my friend in college and in afterlife, I can speak only with extreme terror. This terror is not due altogether to the sinister manner of his recent disappearance, but was engendered by the whole nature of his life work, and first gained its acute form more than 17 years ago when we were in the third year of our course at the Miskatonic University Medical School in Arkham. Every time it says Arkham, I immediately think of Arkham Asylum, so that kind of ruins the atmosphere I have with this. While he was with me, the wonder and diabolism of his experiments fascinated. I need to learn to speak properly. Fascinated me utterly, and I was his closest companion. Now that he is gone and the spell is broken, the actual fear is greater. Memories and possibilities are ever more hideous than realities. The first horrible incident of our acquaintance was the greatest shock I ever experienced, and it is only with reluctance that I repeat it. As I have said, there's no period between the it and the as. I mean, there is a period, but there's no space after the period. That's gonna bug me for the rest of my life. As I have said, it happened when we were in the medical school, where West had already made himself notorious through his wild theories of nature and death, and the possibility of overcoming it artificially. His views, which were widely ridiculed by the faculty and his fellow students, hinged on the essentially mechanistic nature of life, and concerned means of operating the organic machinery of mankind by calculated chemical action after the failure of natural process. In his experiments with various animating solutions, he had killed and treated immense numbers of rabbits, guinea pigs, cats, dogs, and monkeys. Jesus! Till he had become the prime nuisance of the college. You hear they're making a game that came out 4 years ago? What does that even mean? I can just picture the college professors. They just walk into, like, the lab, and they just are greeted by the sight of, like, hundreds of dead animals, and they're like, Jesus Christ, West! You need to stop, okay? For the love of God! It's like that moment in Salmonella where it's like, okay, Freud, here's 500 eels. Now you gotta figure out which eels are the males, and then it just cuts to the walls being covered with blood. It's like, these eels are all girls! Go get more! Okay, moving on. Several times, he had actually obtained signs of life in animals, supposedly dead, in many cases, violent signs. But he soon saw that the perfection of this process, if indeed possible, would necessarily involve a lifetime of research. It likewise became clear that, since the same solution never worked alike on different organic species. God, I could really go for some Cheetos right now. What even is this story? You'll see. They are making a game that came out in 2017. What game is it? Anyways, it likewise became clear that since the same solution never worked alike on different organic species, he would require human subjects for further and more specialized progress. Oh, that's gonna be good. It was here that he first came into conflict with the college authorities. Oh, God. And was debarred from future experiments by no less a dignitary than the dean of the medical school himself, the learned and benevolent Dr. Alan Halsey, whose work in behalf of the stricken is recalled by every old resident of Arkham. Horizon Zero Dawn. Why? It seems good enough already. He's my... Hi, dog. Oh, he's alive! He's alive and well! You want a Cheeto? You want a Cheeto, boy? Let me give you a Cheeto. Yeah, you like Cheetos, don't ya? Here, have 3. Don't tell Mom. That's my Cheeto boy. Who's my little Cheeto boy? Who's my little neckbeard? Who's my little neckbeard? Let's talk some Lovecraft games as well. Call of Cthulhu. That one was good. I watched someone play that one. You got one more. You got one more right there. Eat it. Eat it. It's right there. No. It's, oh my god. There you go. I am productive. Okay. Where were we? Oh yeah, Herbert killing guinea pigs. I had always been exceptionally tolerant of West's pursuits, and we frequently discussed his theories whose ramifications and corollaries were almost infinite. Holding with Haeckel? That all life is chemical and physical process, and that the so-called soul is a myth. My friend believed that the artificial reanimation of the dead can depend only on the condition of the tissues, and that unless actual decomposition has set in, a corpse fully equipped with the organs may, with suitable measures, be set going again in the peculiar fashion known as life. Scorn prologue. What? What are you talking about? That the physic of... what? The psychic or intellectual life might be impaired by the slight deterioration of sensitive brain cells, which even for a short period of death would be apt to cause. West fully realized. It had at first been his hope to find a regent which would restore vitality before the actual advent of death. And only repeated failures on animals had shown him that the natural and artificial life motions were incompatible. He then sought extreme freshness in his specimens, injecting his solutions into the blood immediately after extinction of life. It was this circumstance which made the professors so carelessly skeptical, for they felt that true death did not occurred in any case. They did not stop to view the matter closely and reasoningly. It was not long after the faculty had interdicted his work that West confided to me his resolution to get fresh human bodies in some manner, and continue in secret the experiments he could no longer perform openly. To hear him discussing ways and means was rather ghastly, for at the college we had never procured anatomical specimens ourselves. Whenever the morgue proved inadequate, 2 local... Oh, well, we got our first N-word of the stream. That's great. Okay, 2 local people would attend to this matter, and they were seldom questioned. West was then a small, slender, speckled youth with delicate features, yellow hair, pale blue eyes. Oh, wow, great. And a soft voice. Wow. That's a very interesting description, Lovecraft. And it was uncanny to hear him dwelling on the relative merits of the Christian church cemetery. Why is there no space between... Wait, Christ church? Why not just put a space between Christ and church? Oh my god! And my dog left. I am powerless without my dog. Where did you go? I don't hear anything. I think he died. I'm gonna just leave these headphones off so I can hear my dumbass voice better. And the Potter's Field. We finally decided on the Potter's Field because practically every body in Christchurch was embalmed. A thing, of course, ruinous to West researchers. I can hear you! Where the fuck are you? Come here! Oh yeah, of course you moved to the other bed. Yeah, because my bed isn't good enough. Of course it isn't. Fucking dog. Because Christchurch is a name. N-word counter 1. I was by this time his active and enthralled assistant, and helped him make all those decisions, not only concerning the source of bodies, but concerning a suitable place for our loathsome work. So, what you're telling me is you're an accomplice. It was I who thought of the deserted Chapman farmhouse beyond Meadow Hill, where we fitted up the ground floor, an operating room, and a laboratory, each with dark curtains to conceal our midnight doings. The place was far from any road, and in sight of no other house, yet precautions were nonetheless necessary, since rumors of strange lights started by chance nocturnal roamers would soon bring disasters on our enterprise. It was agreed to call the whole thing a chemical laboratory if discovery should occur. Oh, what? This body on this table? That's just a chemical laboratory. Don't worry about it, officer. That body it's just made of Jello. Yeah, we're making chemical Jello, and that body's made of Jello. Trust me. Gradually we equipped our sinister haunt of science with the materials either purchased in Boston or quietly borrowed from the college. Materials carefully made unrecognizable, safe to expert eyes, and provided spades and picks for the many burials we should have to make in the cellar. At the college, we used an incinerator, but the apparatus was too costly for our unauthorized laboratory. Bodies were always a nuisance, even the small guinea pig bodies from the slight clandestine experiments in West's room at the boarding house. We followed the local death notices like ghouls. For our specimens demanded particular qualities. What we wanted were corpses interned soon after death and without actual preservation, preferably free from malforming disease, and certainly with all organs present. Accident victims were our best hope. Not for many weeks did we hear of anything suitable, although we talked with morgue and hospital authorities, ostensibly in the college's interest, as though we could without exciting suspicion. We found that the college had first choice in every case, so that it might be necessary to remain at Arkham during the summer. When only the limited summer school classes were held, in the end, though, luck favored us, for one day we heard of an almost ideal case in the Potter's Field. A brawny young workman drowned only the morning before in Sumner's Pond, and buried at the town's expense without delay or embalming. That afternoon, we found the new grave and determined to begin work soon after midnight. It was a repulsive task that we undertook in the black small hours, even though we lacked at the time the special horror of the... I'm sorry. Okay, just gonna put these headphones back on. Okay. I can speak good. Where was I? The special horror of graveyards, which later experiences brought us. We carried spades and oil dark lanterns. What? Oil dark lanterns? Is that like a special type of lantern? Is that like a limited edition? For although electric torches were then manufactured, they were not as satisfactory as the tungsten contrivances of today. The process of unearthing was slow and sordid. It might have been gruesomely poetical if we had been artists instead of scientists. And we were glad when our spades struck wood. When the pine box was fully uncovered, West scrambled down and removed the lid, dragging out and propping up the contents. I reached down and hauled the contents out of the grave, and then both toiled hard to restore the spot to its former appearance. The affair made us rather nervous, especially the stiff form and vacant face of our first trophy, but we managed to remove all traces of our visit. When we had patted down the last shovelful of earth, we put the specimen in the canvas sack and set out for old Chapman Place beyond the Meadow Hill. My headphones are falling off. On an impoverished dissecting table in the old farmhouse, by the light of a powerful, oh my god, acetylene lamp. The specimen was not very spectral looking, and being a sturdy and apparently unimaginative youth of wholesome plebeian type. I want people to call me that now. I want people to describe me as a wholesome plebeian. Large, fragmented, gray-eyed, and brown-haired, a sound animal without psychological subtleties, and probably having vital processes of the simplest and healthiest sort. Now, with the eyes closed, it looked more asleep than dead, though the expert test of my friends soon left no doubt on that score. How did he test? What, did he hit it with a hammer? He's like, yup, it's dead. Okay. We had at last what West had always longed for, a real dead man of the ideal kind. Ready for the solution as Jesus, there's a rip in paper here. As prepared according to the most careful calculations and theories of human use. The tension on our part became very great. We knew that there was scarcely a chance for anything like complete success, and could not avoid hideous fears at possible grotesque results of partial animation, especially where we apprehensive concerning the mind and impulses of the creature, since in the space-rolling death some of the more delicate cerebral cells might have suffered deterioration. I myself still held some curious notions about the traditional soul of man, and felt an awe at the secrets that might be told by one returning from the dead. I wonder what sights this placid youth might have seen in inaccessible spheres, and what he could relate if fully restored to life. But my wonder was not overwhelming, since for the most part I shared the materialism of my friend. He was calmer than I as he forced a large quantity of his fluid into a vein of the body's arm, immediately binding the incisions securely. The waiting was gruesome, but West never faltered. Every now and then he applied his stethoscope to the specimen and bore the negative results philosophically. After about 3/4 of an hour, without the least sound of life, he disappointedly pronounced the solution inadequate, but determined to make the most of his opportunity to try one change in the formula, before disposing of his ghastly prize. We had that afternoon dug a grave in the cellar, and would have to fill it by dawn. For although we had fixed a lock on the house, we wished to shun even the most remotest risk of ghoulish discovery. Besides, the body would not even be approximately fresh the next night. So taking the solitary acetylene lamp into the adjacent laboratory, we left our silent guests on the slab in the dark, and bent every energy into mixing of a new solution, the weighing and measuring supervised by West with an almost fanatical care. The awful event was very sudden and wholly unexpected. I was pouring something from one test tube to another, and West was busy over the alcohol blast lamp, which had to answer for a Bunsen burner in this gasless edifice, where from the pitch black, let me guess, there was a stream. When from the pitch black room we had left, there burst the most appalling and demonic I can't fucking speak! Okay. I'm flipping on a light. I'm taking a nice sip of a drink. I can fucking do this. We had left there the most appalling and demonic succession of cries that either of us had ever heard. Not more inutterable could have been the chaos of hellish sound if the pit itself had opened to release the agony of the damned. For one inconceivable cacophony was centered all the supernatural, supernal, what? Terror and unnatural despair of of animate nature. Human it could not have been. It is not in man to make such sounds, and without a thought of our late employment or its possible discovery, both Wes and I leapt to the nearest window like stricken animals, overturning lamps, tubes, and retorts, and vaulting madly into the starred abyss of the rural night. Imagine being a 1930s alienist and hearing from a middle-aged woman her son read the insane childish stories of Lovecraft and you won't leave his room, but when you get there it's a grown man. What? Do 3 deep breaths. Weirdo. Lovecraft was a prophet. Reader. He wrote fanfiction. Weirdo. Based on his dreams. Reader. He was an atheist. What? I wish I was eating Cheetos right now, but I can't really eat Cheetos and read. Plus, I don't want to get Cheeto dust on my book. I might just adjust myself in my seat. Where were we? I think we screamed ourselves as we stumbled frantically towards the town. Though as we reached the outskirts, we put on a semblance of restraint, just enough to seem like belated revelers staying home from a debauch. But we did not separate, but managed to get to West's room, where we whispered with the gas up until dawn. By then, we had calmed ourselves a little with rational theories and plans for investigation, so that we could sleep through the day, classes being disregarded. But that evening, 2 items in the paper, wholly unrelated, made it impossible again for us to sleep. Old deserted Chapman House had inexplicably burned to an amorphous heap of ashes. That we understood because of the upset lamp. Oh no, you upset the lamp, you monsters. Weirdo, Cthulhu. Hold on, what the fuck does that say? Cthulhu Fatag. What? I don't speak Italian. Also, an attempt had been made to disturb a new grave in the potter's field, as if by futile and spadeless clawing at the earth that we could not understand, for we had patted down the mold very carefully. Jesus, thunder's going apeshit. And for 17 years after that, Wes would frequently look over his shoulder and complain of fancied footsteps behind him. Now he has disappeared. Oh no! We sure will miss the bastard. Fun fact! Oh, I can actually see the chat on the computer faster than my phone. That's cool. Fun fact, despite Lovecraft's biases, he was actually an atheist, and his stories are specifically designed to be what would scare an atheist at the time where science was believed to help humanity. So did you try the demos today? No. I was busy. What was I busy with? Dying. Why was I dying? It's a long story. Why am I patting my foot? I don't know. Oh, guys. I'm getting distracted. I'm sorry, but check this out. Check this out. Hold on. Let me just put it on my wrist. There we go. You hear that? It's a bracelet. My mom brought it for me. It has nuts on it. Like hollowed out nuts. Pretty cool, right? Okay, I'm gonna go back to reading now. It's scratching at my hand. There we go. This means that Lovecraft's work, despite being atheist, was romantic. What? I'm sorry, what? Romantic? What? What? Hold on. Hold on. Hold up. Okay, I shall never forget that hideous summer 16 years ago, when like a noxious Afrite from the halls of Eblis Typhoid stalked leeringly through Arkham. It is by that satanic scourge that most recall the year, for truly terror brooded with bat wings over the piles of coffins in the tombs of Christchurch Cemetery. Yet for me there was greater horror in that time, a horror known to me alone now that Herbert West has disappeared. Wes and I were doing postgraduate work in summer classes at the medical school of Miskatonic University, and my friend had attained a wide notoriety because of experience leading towards a revivification of the dead. He also killed a lot of fucking guinea pigs. You know, he killed a lot of animals. Kind of weird, but we don't talk about that. After the scientific slaughter of uncounted small animals, the freakish work had ostensibly stopped by order of our skeptical dean, Dr. Alan Halsey. Alan's like, West, you gotta stop. Like, you seriously need to stop. You've killed, like, 5 cats, 13 dogs, 50 guinea pigs, an innumerable amount of mice. You need to stop. I'm putting you down for counseling, okay? This has to stop, West, okay? We're all worried about you. This is an intervention. You need to stop. This keep doing deep breaths, Falky, but that sounds cool. Like that? Deep breaths like that? Romantic in the sense of opposing enlightenment, not romantic. Aww. Lovecraft wrote about humanity should return to monkey because science would make humanity go insane from the knowledge. But science is cool. Anyways. Though Wes had continued to perform certain secret tests in his dingy boarding house room and had one terrible, unforgettable occasion taken a human body from its grave in Potter's Field to a deserted farmhouse beyond Meadow Hill. I was with him on that Odysseus occasion and saw him inject into the still veins the elixir which he thought would, to some extent, restore life's chemical and physical process. It had ended horribly, in a delirium of fear which we gradually came to attribute to our own overwrought nerves, and Wes had never afterward been able to shake off a maddening sensation of being haunted and hunted. The body had not been quite fresh enough. It is obvious that to restore normal mental attributes, a body must be very fresh indeed, and the burning of the old house had prevented us from burying the thing. It would have been better if we could have known it was underground. After the experience, West had dropped his researches for some time, but as the zeal of the born scientist slowly returned again, he again became importunate with the college faculty, pleading for the use of the dissecting room and of fresh human specimens for the work he regarded as so overwhelmingly important. His pleas, however, were wholly in vain, for the decision of Dr. Hasley was inflexible, and all other professors all endorsed the verdict of their leader. In the radical theory of reanimation, they saw nothing but the immature vagaries of a youthful scientist whose slight form, yellowed hair, speckled blue eyes, and soft voice gave no hint of the supernormal, almost diabolical power of the cold brain within. This slow, you don't want to overdo it. Despite this, Lovecraft prided himself on scientific axery, and read science magazines to write about. Beautiful. I can see him now as he was then, and I shiver. He grew sterner of face, but never elderly. And now Septum Asylum has had the mishap, and West has vanished. West clashed disagreeably with Dr. Hasley near the end of our last undergraduate term in the wordy dispute that did less credit to him than to the kindly dean in point of courtesy. He felt that he was needlessly and irrationally stupid. I'm not gonna say the R word. In a supremely great work. A work which he could, of course, conduct to suit himself in later years, but which he wished to begin while still possessed of the exceptional facilities of the university. That the tradition-bound elders should ignore his singular results on animals and persist in their denial of the possibility of reanimation was inexpressibly disgusting and almost incomprehensible to the youth of Westological temperament. Only greater maturity could help him understand the chronic mental limitations of the professor-doctor type, the product of generations of apathic Puritanism, kindly conscientious, and sometimes gentle and amiable, yet always narrow, intolerant, custom-ridden, and lacking perspective. Age has more charity for those incomplete, yet high-souled characters whose worst real vice is timidity, who are ultimately punished by general ridicule for their intellectual sins. Sins like Ptolemyism, Calvinism, anti-dwarfism, anti-Nitschism, and every sort of Sabbaturnism and sumptuary legislation. What did I just read? Okay. West, young despite his marvelous scientific acquirements, had scant patience with Dr. Hasley and his erudite colleagues, and nursed an increasing resentment coupled with the desire to prove his series to these obtuse worthies in some striking and dramatic fashion. Like most youths, he indulged in elaborate daydreams of revenge, triumph, and final magnanimous forgiveness. What are these words? And then had come the scourge grinning and lethal. From the nightmare caverns of Tartarus, West and I had graduated about the time of its beginning, but had remained for additional work at the summer school, so that we were in Arkham when it broke with its full demonic fury upon the town. Though not as yet licensed physicians, we now had our degrees and were pressed frantically into public service as the numbers of stricken grew. The situation was almost past management, and the deaths ensued too frequently for the local undertakers to fully handle. Burials without bombing were made in rapid succession, and even the Christchurch cemetery receiving tomb was crammed with coffins of the embalmed dead. Of the unembalmed dead. This circumstance was not without effect on West, who thought often of the irony of the situation. So many fresh specimens, yet none for his persecutor researches. We were frightfully overworked, and the terrific mental and nervous strain made my friend brood morbidly. But West's gentle enemies were no less harassed with prostrating duties. College had all but closed, and every doctor of the medical faculty was helping to fight the typhoid plague. Dr. Hasley in particular had distinguished himself in sacrificing service, applying his extreme skill with wholehearted energy to cases which many others shunned because of the danger or apparent hopelessness. Before a month was over, the fearless Dean had become a popular hero, though he seemed unconscious of his fame as he struggled to keep from collapsing with physical fatigue and nervous exhaustion. West could not withhold an admiration for the fortitude of his foe, but because of this, was even more determined to prove to him the truth of his amazing doctrines. Taking advantage of the disorganization of both college and work, the municipal health regulations, he managed to get a recently deceased body smuggled into the university dissection room. One night, and in my presence, injected a new modification of his solution. The thing actually opened its eyes, but only stared at the ceiling with a look of soul-petrifying horror before collapsing into inertness from which nothing could rouse it. West said it was not fresh enough. The hot summer air does not favor corpses. Thank you, West. Great. Yeah, good observation. That time we were almost caught before we incinerated the thing, and West doubted the advisability of repeating his daring misuse of the college laboratory. The peak of the epidemic had reached in August. West and I were almost dead. Jesus! And Dr. Hasley did die on the 14th. The students all tended to hate the hasty funeral on the 15th and brought an impressive wreath through the latter was quiet, overshadowed by the tribute sent by the wealthy Arkham citizens and by the municipality itself. It was almost a public affair, for the dean had surely seen a public benefactor. After the entombment, we were all somewhat depressed and spent the afternoon at the bar of the commercial house, where West, though shaken by the death of his chief opponent, chilled the rest of us with references to his notorious theories. Most of the students went home, or to various duties, as the evening advanced, but West persuaded me to aid him in making a night of it. Let me guess, he's gonna dig up the corpse, isn't he? West's landlady saw us arrive at his room about 2 a.m, with a third man between us, and told her husband that we had all evidently dined and wined rather well. Apparently, this acidulous matron was right. For about 3 a.m., the whole house was aroused by cries coming from West's room, where when they broke down the door, they found the two of us unconscious on a blood-stained carpet, beaten, scratched, and mauled, with the broken remnants of West bottles and instruments around us. What the fuck happened? And only an open window told what had become of our assailant, and many wondered how he himself had fared after that terrific leap from the second story to the lawn, which he must have made. There were some strange garments in the room, but West, upon regaining consciousness, said they did not belong to the stranger, but were specimens collected for bacteriological analysis in the course of investigations on the transmissions of germ diseases. What is going on? Why is my phone... Why did my phone go die? Is phone good? Phone is okay. Prop that shit back up. Okay, there we go. He ordered them to be burned, as soon as possible in the capacious fireplace. To the police, we both declared ignorance of our late companion's identity. He was, West nervously said, a congenial stranger whom we had met at some downtown bar of uncertain location. We had all been rather jovial, and West and I did not wish to have our pugnacious companion hunted down. Why is my phone off again? What the fuck? There we go. Okay. How's everyone doing? That same night saw the beginning of the second Arkham horror, the horror that, to me, eclipsed the plague itself. Christchurch Cemetery was the scene of a terrible killing. A watchman had been clawed to death in a manner not only too hideous for description, but raising a doubt as to the human agency of the deed. The victim had been seen alive considerably after midnight. The dawn revealed the unutterable thing. The manager of a circus in the neighboring town of Bolton was questioned, but he swore that no beast had at any time escaped from its cage. Those who found the body noted a trail of blood leading to the receiving tomb, where a small pool of red lay on the concrete just outside the gate. A fainter trail led away towards the wood, but it soon gave out. Good. Yeah, that's good. The next night, devils danced on the roof of Arkham, and unnatural madness howled in the wind. Through the fevered town had crept a curse which some said was greater than the plague, which some whispered was the embodied demon soul of the plague itself. 8 houses were entered by a nameless thing, which strewed red death in its wake. In all, 17 maimed and shapeless remnants of bodies were left behind by the voiceless, sadistic monster that crept abroad. A few persons had seen it in the dark, and said it was white and like a malformed ape or anthropomorphic fiend. It had not left behind quite all that it had attacked, for sometimes it had been hungry. Jesus. The number it had killed was 14. 3 of the bodies had been stricken in homes that had not been alive. Had been in stricken homes and had not been alive. What? On the third night, frantic bands of searchers led by the police captured it in a house on Crane Street near Miskatonic campus. They had organized the quest with care, keeping in touch by means of volunteer telephone stations, and when someone in the college district had reported hearing a scratching at a shuttered window, the net was quickly spread. On account of the general alarm and precautions, there were only 2 more victims, and the capture was effected without major casualties. The thing was finally stopped by a bullet, though not a fatal one, and was rushed to a local hospital amidst the universal excitement and loathing. For it had not been a man, this much was clear despite the nauseous eyes and voiceless simianism and the demonic savagery. They dressed the swoon and carted it to the asylum at Sefton, where it beat its head against the walls of the padded cell for 16 years until the recent mishap when it escaped under circumstances that few like to mention. What most disgusted researchers of Arkham was the thing they noticed when the monster's face was clean, the mocking, unbelievable resemblance to a learned and self-sacrificing mater who had been entombed but 3 days before. The late Dr. Alan Halsey, public benefactor and dean of the medical school of Miskatonic University. To the vanished Herbert West, and to me, the disgust and horror was supreme. I shudder tonight as I think about it. Shudder even more than I did that morning when West muttered through his bandages, "Damn it, it wasn't quite fresh enough." West! What the fuck? Yeah, and with that, I think I'm gonna end the stream. I can continue this another time. Okay.